I'm Ken Fjord. Last year, I wrote a book for my son entitled The Graysonian Ethic, Lessons for My Unborn Son, in the months before he was born. Once he was born, I published the book on Amazon. He's now a happy bouncing baby, and I've decided to release the audiobook version for free on YouTube. On social justice, following up on my essay on environmentalism, I want to say something about social justice. Now I grew up in a progressive era, and I agreed with it then and I agree with it now. We should not be holding people back based on the color of their skin, who they fell in love with, their sex, their gender, or anything like that. In fact, to an extent I recognize that historically we have, as a Western society, harmed certain groups, and it is just to give those groups a little bit of a helping hand to try to make things more equitable in the future. I think that most people would agree with that. An overwhelming majority, in fact. The issue once again is sort of the woke industrial complex. I cannot think of a better term than that at the moment. This is not about making the world better. If it was, then how come in this age of social justice we have the first generation in 100 years, Gen Z, who are the first generation to be more conservative than their parents? If you are trying to help people, why is it backfiring so badly? I think the fundamental reason is that even if individual activists think that they are doing the right thing, they are still acting as pawns for bad actors. There are obvious and clear hypocrisies that work here. Nike was more than happy to stop producing Cleveland Indians merchandise, and yet they still produce all their merchandise in a country under dictatorial control of a one-party state that has willfully implemented ethnic concentration camps. Disney was so allegedly appalled at Gina Carano for referring to a regime with concentration camps that she is being systematically erased from the history of Disney. However, they were more than happy to thank the authoritarian regime with ethnic concentration camps that helped them make their last big movie. Who cares about a little bit of organ harvesting when somebody made a comparison that we really do not like on Twitter? If you think that these companies are your allies, you are helplessly naive. They are simply reframing getting the things that they want in terms that you must agree with. Companies can no longer actively fight against unions, so they simply support divisions in the populace so that the people do not band together. They cannot deal with the idea of having to compete for workers, so they do everything in their power to support making each individual as valueless as possible so that they can never come to the negotiating table from a place of power. Many of the worst injustices in history were written in similar terms, though the terms change from decade to decade. At one point in history, they would have used the threat communism posed to get what they want. At another point in history, they would have used religion. At yet another point in history, they would have used the authority of the king or the ruling class. And everyone would just nod their heads because despite the self-serving nature of what they demanded, no one could possibly disagree with the political orthodoxy of the moment. I'm going to be misunderstood. I'm not saying that racism does not exist. Of course it does. I'm not saying that people are not mistreated in society. Of course they are. I'm not saying that injustice does not exist. Of course it does. What I'm saying is that these already overwhelmingly powerful entities are using these decent causes in bad faith to get what they want. In one of the latest shows from Rakieta Law, Nick Rakieta talked about the creation of internment camps for Asian Americans during World War II. One of the biggest supporters of that was the White Farm Lobby. Using the politically expedient cause of patriotism in the face of war, they had these people rounded up and put into camps and then went ahead and bought their property up for pennies on the dollar. That is the point of what they are doing. Their actions and the hypocrisy therein prove it. I never changed. The world changed. Now every time that I hear someone speaking out against the things that I'm against, I have a voice in my head that gets louder and louder every year that screams liar. When I hear them speak, because I know what's really going on here. Far from advocating against social justice, what I am really advocating for is using your brain, thinking for yourself, and keeping your eyes and ears open to the fact that just because someone says that they are agreeing with you does not mean that they are. The most common debate tactic on the planet is pretending that you agree with your opponent, and then twisting their argument to get what you want. If we are not careful, the next step is not pretty for anybody. The Weimar Republic was a relatively free and open society, and some of the same tactics that these people are using, taking common men and women and telling them that they were bad people for reasons they had no control over, and that they needed to be punished, and then punishing them led to the rise of Nazi Germany. Companies made a lot of money off the Nazis. They make a lot of money off of current dictatorships. They'll make a lot of money off the next dictatorship as well. They aren't your ally. Thanks for listening to this chapter of the Graysonian Ethic, Lessons for My Unborn Son. If you like the book and would like a physical copy or an electronic copy, please look it up. It's available on Amazon around the world. Barring that, please like and share with others. I'll be releasing one chapter every week, so if it hasn't been completely released. If you're interested in hearing more, you can subscribe to see when I post additional chapters.